You know them as Peter Pan and Tinkerbell, and they don't really need much of an introduction at all. Let's go ahead and introduce Blayne Weaver and Margaret Kerry.
Where would you like us to sit?
Anywhere you want.
Is that true?
She's causing trouble already. That's what she does.
Are you sure?
Yep, I'm going to put these right here.
I guess I'm going to sit here.
Hi. See you.
Welcome to Cincinnati Comic Expo.
Thank you.
Is this your first time in Cincinnati?
Never saw it before in my life. It's adorable.
Oh,
It's my first time, too, but everybody's been very nice. Thanks for having us.
great. So we just want to kind of get into it. You have played Peter Pan in Peter Pan 2. And you were the inspiration, Margaret, for Tinkerbell.
I was. I
Can-
still am.
That's right.
Okay. Just like
Can
it.
you talk about, both of you, on how you got that role, how it came about, and just kind of the process of working with Disney?
Ah,
Well, she actually knew him, so that's kind of an unfair
I
situation.
figured.
Why don't you start with this one?
no, because I have 91 years, and you can sit back and relax.
All right, I'll tell mine real
Yeah,
quick,
yes.
and then I'll just hand it over to you. I'll be quiet the rest of the time. But honestly, her story
Not really.
involves
Not
Walt
really.
Disney.
He has a great story.
So I was an actor in Los Angeles, and I was doing one of those things that actors in Los Angeles do, where they go to their agents and like drop in on them and bother them and remind them that we exist, because I hadn't been getting the auditions that I wanted. And so she brought me back to her office, and she's like, "Here, go down the hall and audition for this cartoon." And I'm like, "Okay." I never auditioned for voiceover before. And the part was for one of the Lost Boys that originally, in the original film, was done by an adult. And the voice was very much like Goofy's voice, like, "Hey," you know. So I started auditioning for that, and I felt immediately ridiculous. And I'm like, I can't do this, but I can play a kid. And I had seen Peter Pan so many times that I could literally hear the movie in my head, you know. So I'm like, "Have you cast Peter?" And they're like, "No, here, whatever, just do it and get out of here." So I auditioned for Peter. I completely forgot about it. About 3 months later, my agency called, but it was the voiceover department, and they said, "Do we represent you?" And I'm like, I'm in the talent, side. And he's like, "Well, Disney wants to see you, so we rep you now." And I went in the next day, and it was me and 3 other people, and I got hired for Peter Pan. And then we did the read-through with some really wonderful, talented people, and they fired everybody but me and Captain Hook. So the whole time we were doing it, I was convinced I was going to get canned.
Showbiz.
I know. I was like, this is never going to come out with my voice on it. They'll hire Michael J. Fox at the last second and just replace me. And so I never really thought it was going to come out. And we did like 2 or 3 years of recording and then going back, and they'd reanimate. And I didn't know until I saw the trailer and it was my voice. I'm like, well, that worked out.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of,
In
it's
the
been,
meantime, he went back to his agents and bothered them every day.
I did.
The same thing.
now,
That's showbiz.
now I'm a professional voiceover artist.
Yes,
so
you
there you
are.
go.
Yes.
So tell me, how did you come about getting the part of Tinkerbell?
Did he take your line?
He did. It's okay.
Segue. I'm setting you up.
Oh,
I'm
you
setting
are. Well, mine is a little bit longer than that. So this was 72 years ago. I'm working at Fox. I had been working in show business since I was 4. That's 91 years ago, and I love every minute of it. And I got a call from my agent, who knew I was working at Fox as an assistant dance director on a big musical. And can you get over to get away for a day and get interviewed? They're looking for someone who could play a 4.5-inch fairy who doesn't talk. And I said, we're coming to the big, well, it's at Disney. I said, Disney, I'll be there at 6 a.m. Everybody wanted to go to Disney, which is a tiny, tiny little space. I mean, MGM goes on for 38 buildings, and Disney had 1. I think that was about it. But Anyway, I went over and I met this wonderful man who is the man who really designed Tinkerbell. He designed the whole idea. And on top of that, he hired me. And I will show you in a minute why he did. But I walked in and sat down, and Mark Davis is his name. He's known as the ladies' man for Disney. He's the artist who does all of these things. And if I told you the people that like Cruella DeVille and all the rest, that's Mark Davis. So he said to me, we don't have anything out here, but she's a little pixie. And for example, she's going to be stepping on a mirror, and she's never seen a mirror before. And we want her to look nice, but suddenly be unhappy with her hips. And so can you do that? And he said to me, would it be convenient to come to work next Tuesday? No one has ever asked me before or since whether it's convenient to come to work. So I got to be in on the, you see, and I'll make this clear, they don't do that anymore because they had no electronics to do the things that they can do right now. The movie Encanto, the Disney, I understand it was all made in people's living rooms. The artists sat and went back and forth on their computers to make that movie. We had nothing like that, absolutely nothing. So they had to cast someone in the role. The movie took 6 years to make. It was 35,000 pieces of art. So somebody had to do it. What if you had the artist at the beginning of the movie and he's not working anymore and goes down to the end of the movie? It's a different character. So that's how they did. They were so perfect with all of these things. And that's how I got that job. Okay. Surprised you, huh?
Blayne, what is a voice artist? What was you were an actor, what's the big difference between, and obviously acting and voice acting, but like what did you find was the most difficult change to it?
I mean, I really like it, you know, and I think it's about finding. Also, I'm not an impressionist or anything, so those people, and many of them are here, they go into the room and they just become somebody else and they sound just like somebody. I'm not that. I can do Peter because I can hear it in my head, and you know, I just take Wally Cleaver, you know, from Leave It to Beaver and raise my octaves a little bit, and it's mostly about the 50s, you know, kind of, geez, you know, that kind of thing. But it's so much fun when you have that job that fits you and you're not having to like worry about the accent or the. It's just I go in there, I put my hands on my hips, I yell a lot, I talk about calling a guy an old codfish, I pretend to be sword fighting, I pretend to be flying. I mean, it's great, and it's also this iconic character. You know, it's kind of like I'm playing James Bond, you know, or Superman. It's like everybody knows who Peter Pan is, right? They may not have seen Return to Neverland, but they know the part, and it's such an honor. Hard stuff, sure, like sometimes it's hard to hit that octave, or, you know, it's like I'm not 13, but I'm playing one, you know? So there are challenges like in any role, but I mean, the fact that you can go in your pajamas, which most of my colleagues take advantage of, I'm like, you could wear a shirt, you know? But yeah, it's just so much fun, and you're in it completely, and it's all about how it sounds, which is fun.
Well, here's another thing with it, because I was also the red-headed mermaid in the movie. Oh, Peter, we just wanted to drown her. So we went in with June Foray, the great voiceover actress. She played the mermaid with the dark hair, and then another lady whose name I forget because she went out of the movie business, raised kids instead. Can you imagine?
I know, crazy.
Anyway, so we finished. We went in at 1:30. we were given scripts of what we had to read. We tested different voices that we wanted. They chose this, and let's do that twice, and then we turn around and we leave. And literally, we stood outside afterwards and said, why are we fighting for scenes or acting parts in front of the camera, where you get there at 7:30 in the morning, you get into makeup, you're stuck in a big building that you can't, it's all dark and all the rest, and you better, and then you have to do it all over again the next day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we all three of us decided to go into voiceover, and I've done about 600 cartoons for television with about 48 different voices and about 21 different dialects. Whoever sat down and figured that out, I worry about them. But and you can cut up when you're doing voices. You can chat with people, and you know the other one is the director sitting there and looking at you, and you better come through if you're doing on-camera work. So I love voiceover acting, and I'm still doing it. I've got a couple things that I'm doing next week once my voice gets better. So that's my.
That was
my
good too.
jaunt.
Really good.
What do you think? How do you think the legacy of Peter Pan and Tinkerbell? Why do you think that has resonated after all these decades? Like, people still love the cartoon. You know, they love the sequel. Like, and they keep going back to it. What do you think is a lasting legacy, and why?
Well, first of all, it has heart. There is feeling. Nana, the dog, I tell you, immediately Nana pops up, and you just want to melt. And all the things that are happening, and although you never really feel they're in peril, you've got to see how they get out of it. It becomes part of you, and people know what you're talking about. There are so many wonderful cartoon movies that you've seen, and then you forget in 2 years. You say, "Oh, you remember that, right? You remember?" No, they don't. But you talk about the Indian princess in Peter Pan, or Jane with her funny socks on her feet that she never loses. We remember it, and it's part of us. And I think and that's what Disney could do. He really, and I'm told that after a movie was finished, pretty well completed, ready to be sent on its way, that Walt Disney would sit in his room and have it played for him 3 times. And if he saw anything in there that broke the joy of it, or somebody said, "Okay, that didn't go in his pictures," he would send it back and have it changed. So the work that went on it to make them wonderful and people would love them, I think that's what did it.
Yeah, I also like the idea of the never growing up. I think it's something everybody can relate to, and like holding on to the joy and excitement, and because it's not just gleefully ignorance of children. It's the fun. It's the going out and like, let's do it now. No, we're gonna play follow the leader right now. We're doing it now. You know, and I think that action and adventure and that fun is something that everybody remembers and relates to, and the personifications are so perfect.
And also the beautiful, beautiful artwork, fantastic artwork.
We can open it up for questions if you have one. Go ahead and start lining up. Don't be shy. You were also, Margaret, in the first sitcom on television. Is that correct?
With Charlie Ruggles, 172 of them back to back, and it was network. And so we did every week for 72 weeks. We did a new, it was 28 minutes, a half-hour show. So it was. I love television. I adore television much more than I adore movies. Movies are boring, and when you're a kid and you go to the movie and you go into the sound stage and you go to the little room and you sit down to a table that's made for adults and you try to do homework, which you cannot do, and then you have to whisper the whole time because you might spoil a shot that they're trying to do, and then it's all dark, and then you get up and you go someplace else. On television, we would do it. When I started in with my own show, when we would do it, it was gone. No one could point at it and say, you did thus and so. No. You know, everything is on YouTube. I have a channel on YouTube. You do? Yes, I do, with a 2-hour show all about me. I've never seen it. I don't know how to get there.
We'll do a tutorial later. It'll be great.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Lots of pixie dust.
Back at you.
And my question is in the Walt Disney World studios, do you have like a favorite time or experience with Walt himself, or just in the company itself?
Yes? Yes, I do.
I'd like to hear it.
Okay. So, I'm out in front of the camera in the big one sound stage. That's all we had. So Walt Disney and the whole group of people and Buddy Ebsen would come in, and they were working on something against the wall. They were trying to figure out animatronics. I was there when they were figuring out animatronics. I still can't stand that. And then they would all fade away, and Mr. Disney would come over and chat with the artist. Yes, that one. Anyway, he would come over, and of course, I was invited in with him. Well, as a child actor, when I was at any of the studios, I was told that if you ever saw the head of a studio, you bowed or you curtsied, and you didn't look at their face, because every mother wanted the child to see the head of the studio, because the head of the studio could make the child into a star, right? But it didn't happen that way. You were like this. So I'm standing there, and I turn around and I look, and the head of the studio is walking up. And Walt Disney, I was introduced to him, and he was just charming, and we chatted, and it happened 2 or 3 or 4 times. And suddenly on the 3rd time, I thought, he's not just the head of the studio, he's Walt Disney, for heaven's sakes. You know, some things I'm not real fast at picking up things. Anyway, we're standing there, and he said, I understand that you go to school with my daughters. And I stopped, and then I realized I go to a girls' school. The reason I do is I could get a permit to get out to work. You couldn't get it at public schools. And sure enough, Diane and all right, I'm 95, put up with me.
The other one.
The other one, Sharon, was at my school in different grades. But for him to know that, to stand there and chat about it, he was just absolutely charming, and he was a family man from the word go. He was none of this, I'm king. There was nothing like that. I'm told that the only time that he really got hot under the collar was when he had a brand new idea that hadn't been done, and he couldn't get it across to his crew. Then he would use wonderful 4-letter words that I probably have never heard of. But otherwise, and Disney Studio itself, and you could say that, you can walk up to anybody in Disney Studios and start chatting with him. I mean, it's friendly. You go to MGM, it's, what do you want? I mean, it's not friendly. Fox is sort of friendly. Paramount's a little bit, RKO is falling apart, so that's okay. But Disney has everything. They have even counted how many squirrels they have, so that we can feed them and not get an oversupply. Can you imagine that? Because they like it to look like that.
I wonder what the perfect number of squirrels is.
They wouldn't tell me.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
It's dangerous. Yeah. Well, I didn't get to meet Walt Disney, show off. But I got to meet her, which was really a special moment for me. We did when Return to Neverland had its premiere, they had a premiere at the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood.
Yes.
And again, you have to keep in mind that 3 weeks before the premiere of the movie, I really didn't think that I was going to be in it. So I thought I was just a placeholder, like I said before. But
Where did they make the movie?
where did they make it? It was a really small, like non-fancy or impressive recording studio in Burbank.
But the recording studio, but where did they make the movie?
Well, they made the movie in the Burbank.
In New Zealand.
In New Zealand.
They made it in New Zealand.
That's right. That's
Yep.
right. I do remember that. I
Yep.
didn't go there either. But I would often get directions from the director who was not present. You know, he was in New Zealand. You know so much. So anyways, we were on the red carpet, and we met on the red carpet together, and Disney threw this big premiere thing, and there was a limo involved that my mom got to ride in with me, and it was very satisfying and also made me feel very special to be a part of it. And then we met, and she's like, "I'm Tinkerbell." And I'm like, "What?
What?
Get over here, Tink." You know, and we've been fast
And
friends ever
Did you
since.
just hear his voice? Did you just hear him say Tink? That's the one that's in the movie. That's exactly, that's your Tink.
Thank you. Thanks for the question.
Go ahead.
Both of you have had pretty extensive careers. Is there any line of dialogue or monologue that sticks with you that you can it comes back to you easily?
I'm sorry, my hearing aids from Costco's are not reaching far enough for you.
Is there any line of dialogue that has stuck with you throughout the years from a show or a voiceover that you did?
Line of dialogue.
I know there's more than this because I'm definitely got Pan on the mind today, but you know, I never grow up is, I guess you could say, a mantra of mine, so that never goes anywhere. But I really like that I rediscovered. I'd kind of forgotten about it, but I was thinking of things to write when I do the autographs thing. But game's over, Hook. That's a good one.
That's a good
I
one.
like that one.
How about faith and trust and a whole bunch of pixie dust?
Yeah,
Yep.
love it.
That's probably the one that's followed me.
Thank you.
Working for Disney, what is the biggest perk of Disney? Like when you go to Walt Disney World, do you get to jump to the front of the line? Is there a is there a perk of
Well,
Disney?
Let me say this. One of us on the couch does. I'm not going to tell you which one it is, but one of us doesn't.
No, actually, I go there as with some friends, and the word gets out. That's the biggest one. The word gets out. And I have had situations there. I had no idea, literally, that she is so well thought of by the people who work at Disneyland. And a whole crew at one time told their boss that they were leaving they'll be right back, but they're going over because they knew Tinkerbell was over on the other side of the walk, and they wanted to meet me. I just kept thinking of Mark Davis, because I got to tell you, it was Mark Davis who did all this wonderful thing, and he's the one who figured out that she wasn't supposed to talk. He thought she would be more interesting that way. I mean, the man was just a genius as far as I'm concerned. Now, of course, I had a lot to do with it, and he did choose me. I understand all of that, but right at the bottom of everything is Mark. My book is dedicated to him, and I have pictures of him in my book, and he was just wonderful. And his wife did costuming, and she costumed It's a Small World, in the train on the way to New York when they did that way back when. And she also did Pirates of the Caribbean. She did all the costumes for those characters, and she was quite a character herself. She was just a dear. So there were perks that way.
Yeah, I have to agree that like the greatest thing that you get out of doing, at least on my end, is that people get excited about it, you know. And it's like I just went to Disney not too long ago, and we went to the PhilharMagic, and it's just really fun to be able to lean over to your nieces and nephews and be like, "That's me," and it's just such a neat thing to be a part of.
Yes.
First off, you just mentioned nieces and nephews. I'm here with my niece. She has a young daughter now that we've been able to pass Peter Pan on through the generation. So thank you both for that.
Thanks for pushing it.
Miss Kerry, you mentioned June Foray.
Oh, yes.
You've had such a long and distinguished career. Who are some of the favorite people that you have worked with?
Oh, dear. Favorite people that I work with?
Yeah.
Oh, I've forgotten his name, but he never wants to grow up. No, I will remember that. I assure you, I'll remember his name. Well, anyway, in the meantime, I could tell you favorites, but you see, it's a very strange business in Hollywood. I think it's not like New York that I've been told, where you go and stay in people's apartments because you have a rehearsal the next day or whatever it was. In Hollywood, you see each people maybe twice a year, and you know that they're your favorites, and you chat with them, and you're their favorites right then and there. And everybody knows it. It's a family that happens that way. The favorites that I have happen to be people who work behind the scenes. There's a fellow named Rick Law, who was the head of the education department. There is a vice president. Oh, I do have something to tell you. Oh, I forgot. I started out in shoes doing the scenes. They asked me to change to ballet slippers. Sure. Well, guess what? About 4.5 years ago, I found a pair of ballet slippers that I used doing the movie. So I gave them to a fan club, the Disneyana fan club. They turned around and gave them to Walt Disney Family's Museum up in San Francisco. They kept looking at it and fixing them and all the rest of it, and I sent a note saying what it was, and they found little specks of gold. So they're all betting that's pixie dust all over the place. So they presented it in September, and it was out there, everything. Then I got a call last week from my friend who said, the book is out for the museum, and they have given you a full page with your pixie-dusted shoes and your story. No, those are the little things that happen as you go along, and that was just a real blessing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So you both do voice work. Do you ever use the voices just like out and about with people, like going through a drive-through or something, just to have a little bit of fun?
Do we use our voice skills around in public to, I don't know, impress people? I have to tell you that when we did that red carpet for Return to Neverland, Entertainment Tonight was there, and they were like, hey, would you do the voice for me? And I'm like, sure. And I did a little Peter Pan, and then I glanced over, and my best friend, since I was like 12, came along with me, and he was standing off of the side, and he saw me do Peter Pan, and he just goes... So I don't do it very often. Something disconcerting about a man in his mid-40s doing a child's voice from the 50s. I don't know, but I don't do it very often. When kids ask, I'll do it, yeah.
Well, I have just moved with my 99-year-old husband, and I'm 95, and we have just moved to an old folks resort. And it's wonderful in North Carolina. And there are about 100 apartments where we live, and there are people to look at. I'm being spoiled rotten. I tell you, it's fabulous. I have to wash my own. I've always washed my own floor. Somebody comes up and washes my floor. I'm dumbfounded. Anyway, I can't help it. I just can't help it. I walked up to a new... two people who are coming in, and their name is O'Brien, wouldn't you know? Yes. I says, O'Brien, I'm a Kerry. Where are you from? And they're talking back at me, and we're having this wonderful conversation in Irish. And it happens all the time. I just slide into it, and they come along, and we have the best time. We really, really do. It's Davis Communities, if you want to know. Come and join. It's that good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Blayne, you're also a writer, and you've written a lot of stuff. And can you tell us like what you're most proud of from your writing? I know it's sometimes difficult to pick one, but just a couple things.
Yeah, it is kind of, it's kind of weird. We were talking about this earlier today.
He's a director, too.
I'm a director.
Yes, he is.
Yes.
What's funny is the reason I'm a director is because of Peter Pan. We were just talking about this today, but I had done a TV movie where Matt Damon played my older brother, and Matt was writing Good Will Hunting at the time, and I just thought that was cool, and that I wanted to do that. So I wrote a movie, and somehow it ended up getting made, and I bumped to a smaller part because they replaced me with this hack actor, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I don't know if you know him or not. But I always say, if you're going to be replaced in a movie that you wrote, it should be with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, because he's very difficult to be mad at. So anyways, I did this movie, and it was called Manic, and it got into Sundance, and so all of a sudden, it's like, oh, okay, now I'm a screenwriter. But the experience was very traumatic. I did not get along with the director at all. And this was 2001 was when we did Sundance. This Return to Neverland came out in 2002, and I made some money all at one time for that, and I basically bought a house and sold the house and made a movie. So it's a terrible, terrible financial decision. I do not recommend it, but it made me a director. So since then, I get to do all the things that I like, which is act and direct and write. And I know some of the things that I've really enjoyed writing. I did an American Pie movie recently called Girls' Rules, which was on Netflix, which is just so far out of my wheelhouse, and that's why I'm really proud of that movie, that it came out the way that it did. But I really like to write and direct at the same time, so I did a movie called 6 Month Rule that I wrote, directed, and starred in, and it's probably the best, like, hey, here's a Blayne Weaver movie.
And how long did it take you doing all three parts?
We only had enough money for, 21 days, so
Showbiz.
you either do it in 21 days or you ain't doing it.
A lot of people throughout the years, and that. Who do you think is some of the nicest people that people don't know about, the general public doesn't know about in Hollywood?
Matt Damon's very nice. So is Joe Gordon-Levitt. Those guys are just prince, really out of their way, kind of, how's your mom doing? That kind of guy.
Well, I think I have been in all kinds of pictures with stars. Elizabeth Taylor comes to mind in National Velvet. I doubled her in that movie. That's very expensive to make a movie with kid actors because we could only work 4 hours a day. So if they could get a double for them, that's great. I did not ride the horse. Don't panic. But she was adorable, just beautiful. She took your breath away. She was so beautiful. And it was such fun. We would finish the scene, whatever we were doing, and you would hear her mummy call, "Oh, Elizabeth, darling." And you would hear the answer back, "Coming, mummy dear." And she was like that. She changed, I guess. I didn't know her when she was older, but she was sitting with me at MGM, and we were waiting to go in and learn how to do a script that was coming up. Both of us were working with the lady, and this other lady comes in, a young woman comes in, and so she wants to go ahead of us because she's going to be doing the commercials on the Lux Radio Theater, which was big stuff in those days. And so we sat back and watched. I sat with Elizabeth, and she's sitting talking to me, and we're talking to her. And finally she leaves, and it's time for Elizabeth to go in. And so the secretary finished up, she said, "You know who is starring in that radio show tonight?" I said, "I have no idea." She said, "Elizabeth." She never said a word about it. She never, "I'm Elizabeth Taylor." It was never that. It was, and I found that in so many places. They just felt very comfortable about what they were doing. They were nice to you. And of course, I was pretty cute, so that it was easy. But that's what I would say. Now, some directors, a couple of them, were very cold to people. but one of them, and this is my last story. I'm sure you've got time problem, but I was working in a movie for what's it's not Peter Pan, but who's the one? Mark? No, the oh dear, the boys that got into trouble all the time. Mark, go ahead.
Lost Boys?
Lost Boys?
The Lost Boys? Is that what you're talking about?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, I tried.
Oh, good heavens. Well, anyway, we're doing this scene, and he's lost. He's lost in the wherever it is in the scene. And I'm sitting there with, we're standing there, we're all standing around going, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And this one young woman is going to have a big scene about it. And right in the middle of it, the director walks up and he says, you know you have to shape up. And she looked up, what? And he says, yeah, you're, you know, it's not good. I mean, you're not paying attention to. And he went after her until she was crying tears. I mean, it was, and we all wanted to help, but what do you do? And he says, okay, we're ready to shoot, and walked off. I've never forgotten him. He's the only one that I have ever had anything to do with, and all the rest of them were absolutely wonderful for us.
I always say that, like, you can be inspired.
Huckleberry Finn.
There it is. They were boys that were always getting in trouble. That's
Yeah.
very true. No, but like you can be inspired by bad behavior as much as you can by good. Like that director that I didn't enjoy. Like I think it made me a much better director and a better actor because I saw the kind of behavior that I do not like and I do not want to be around. As much as you see from a leader that's gracious and good at it.
Well, I know that what I can say is working in show business 91 years, it has just been wondrous, just wonderful people. I have face blindness, so I have trouble recognizing people after I haven't seen them for a couple of hours. I recognize you, though.
I'm very memorable.
But even with that, somebody whispers in my ear who it is, and so I can hardly wait to shake hands or give them a hug. That's how wonderful show business is, particularly when it moved over to television, because they had to pay attention to what was going on then, I think. But I loved it. I love it.
And you were in one of my favorite shows. You had a guest role in the Andy Griffith Show.
Yes. And I still go up to Mount Airy and entertain on Mayberry Days. And we get about 6,000 people up there with tribute artists, and I tap dance. And yes, I do. And we just have a grand time.
That was during COVID. That was my show that I got hooked on. It is. If you weren't in acting, directing, writing, voice acting, what would you have done in your life, do you think? What path do you think you would have gone down?
I'd probably be in prison or something. I started acting when I was 5. How old were you when you started?
4,
right? So
I always top you.
Yeah, I know. I told you there was a Walt Disney story. Anyway, I feel like it's so ingrained in who I am, certainly, and just knowing Margaret as I do, it's what would we be doing? You know what I mean? I mean, there's other paths, I guess, but I mean, it comes along with some pretty serious unhappiness, I think.
Well, I went to work. I wanted to break out, and I went to work for USC campus, medical campus. I had no right to be there. I didn't know what I was doing, but they seemed to like me. So I kept getting advanced and advanced, but one day I said, no, this is not for me. This is what I want. I want to go back. Actually, I think my joy is entertaining people. It's just there. I had a most wonderful, understand, I was born May 11th, 1929, and the Great Depression happened 2 months later. So I figure I caused it. And then my mother passed away, and then I was adopted by 2 people who were old enough to be my grandparents, and they looked at me, and I could make $3.60 a day working in front of the camera, and I was as cute as Shirley Temple, absolutely. And so that's where it started. And I had the most wonderful, annoying little mother who kept saying, be somebody. You've got to be somebody. And I kept thinking, but I am somebody. But that's not what she meant. That's not what she meant. So I was trained from the time of 4. And to see the smiles on people's faces when you entertain them out of the blue, out of no place, just do it. That's me. So I don't think I would have done anything else. I raised 3 kids, and I've been married 3 times, lost 2 of them, and in the right order. And I found we dated 70 years ago, and he found me after 70 years, and he called me up, or contacted me. He found me over in Holland, where there was a building that said Tinkerbell's Toys, and he turned to his friends and said, "Did I tell you I dated Tinkerbell 70 years ago?" No. So they found me on my website, and I wrote back, and then we talked back and forth, and we were married 10 months later on Valentine's Day in the little brown church in the valley in Hollywood, and off to the East Coast, and he just turned 99 last month, and he's wonderful. I mean, he moves furniture, he does 100 sit-ups, he has me doing 60 sit-ups. But it's still, why did he find me? I was in show business, and he could find me. So that's sort of the cherry on top.
You were talking about the fans and the experiences with them. What is the oddest or the greatest thing that you've signed or heard the story about at a expo or a convention with a fan when they come up to you?
Mine is usually eavesdropping on hers, but like I love, again, it's just about the iconic love that people feel for the characters, and like today I signed something, a drawing, a painting that a young lady had made. All this stuff, it's so personal, right? It's like it belongs to all of us, but also to each person. It's so personal. So I've signed all kinds of stuff that people, woodworking stuff, and costumes, all kinds of fun stuff.
I'm with you, and I get fan mail for Tinkerbell from all over the world, from China, from Japan, from Russia, from Germany, all over the world. And I'll let you in on a little secret. It's 29 males to 1 female. Think about that. And they always tell me they're just training their grandsons to collect. Of course, dear. Of course, dear. And they're wonderful, wonderful little notes. And then young men who have walked up to me and rolled up their shirt, and they've got Tinkerbell tattooed. But I really have to say also with Tinkerbell, she was a little pixie, a little minx, really, in Peter Pan. But they call me in at Disney and say, we're going to make 6 pictures with her, with these other fairies. I don't know if you remember them. But the whole idea was they were going to teach Tinkerbell a lesson that she should learn and that the audience could learn at the same time. I thought that was absolutely wonderful, and that's one of the reasons that she is still loved.
And did you bring some pictures today?
Oh, this is a picture from the Andy Griffith show, where Andy forecloses, and he was so wonderful to work for. It was just a wonderful time. And I also did the Christmas show. Remember when I got put in jail because my husband was a moonshiner? And this is me doing the work. And that's how she came out in the film. And that's pretty close, isn't it? Yes. So, and this is, because we're coming to November 5th, I would like for all of you to vote for me. You got it? I'm literate. All right? So I have your vote.
Well, we want to thank you very much for taking the time out of the day to talk
Delighted.
to us.
Delighted.
It's been an honor for us.
Well, thank you,
Thank
and
you.
right back at you.
Thank
right?
you, everyone, for coming out. Appreciate it.
Can we?
God bless.